Have you got the kind of friends who, when they realize you know which end of a camera to look through, they decide that makes you perfect to photograph their wedding? So if that is you, particularly if you've been asked, I have a couple of things here that might help you. And I'm really looking at this from two perspectives. One is if you've been asked to take pictures where they've already got a photographer booked, so you're taking additional photographs, that's one possibility. And the other one is where they've asked you to shoot the whole thing. Now, the thing about wedding photography is a whole subject on its own, and it's likely to be a webinar at some point from the Creative Photography Academy. But for this blog, I just want to highlight a couple of things for you. So let's take the first example. And actually throughout both of these, I want you to think along the lines of being a visual storyteller rather than a photographer, because that mindset puts you in the right place to start taking the right kind of photographs. So if they've got an existing photographer, they're presumably going to do the standard things with the bride arriving, people arriving at the church or wherever the ceremony is taking place, the kind of what are known as firing squad shots, where they line everybody up against the wall and shoot them. So they'll do all the standard stuff. So if you're there to support, just think about the shots that photographer is not taking. So think about candids, think about detail, maybe a child's shoe or a flower, a corsage, whatever it might be. But think about those detailed shots. Think about getting in among people and just taking candids and open shots that the bride and groom will love, because it reminds them of different details of the day which they didn't particularly witness themselves. So that's tip number one. Really, the second aspect, if you have been asked to photograph the whole thing, there's obviously a lot to that. But again, think in terms of being a visual storyteller. So sit down with the bride and groom and go through the different stages of the wedding and think about, for each stage, what's the shot they want to have. Let them drive it to some extent. If they aren't particularly helpful, it's good to just go online and see what kind of shots typically people have at weddings. And I will be producing a shoot list, assuming I get to webinar with this, because what you want to do is take each stage of the wedding. So maybe it's the bride getting ready, maybe it's people arriving for the ceremony at the church or wherever. It's the bride arriving, the pictures of the bride arriving. If it is in a church or a holy place of some sort, what I do recommend is that you have a chat to whoever is carrying out the ceremony and ask if they're okay for you, first of all, to take discreet photographs. And what I mean by that is not standing at the altar with a flash gun taking pictures, but just stand at the aisle, maybe with a longer lens, and just get what shots you can, but as quiet and unobtrusively as you can. And ask that person if there are any points in the service where they would rather you did not take photographs. This does two things. First of all, it respects that this is a ceremony and it's about the bride and groom. It isn't a photo shoot. And secondly, what I found is that the celebrant, whoever's doing the actual religious part of it, if you like, will be a lot more helpful. And that's also true in a civil wedding where you're maybe at a registry office. Just be courteous and polite and get that person on side. As for the other shots, just get a list of who they want photographs of, so possibly parents. There are a whole lot of other things to think about there, which I'm not going to go into in this blog. But for the purposes of this, that's probably a good starting point for you. Just identify the key steps. What are the key pictures the bride and groom would like to have there? And do a little bit of research before you sit down with them, so that if they come up a bit of a blank, just have some suggestions of your own. So I hope that's useful. And if you are going to photograph somebody's wedding, good luck, because it's quite a responsibility actually. So it's far better if you can either support a photographer, or even better, get somebody to help you. If you know someone else who can take some pictures, get them to go around and do the candid shots for you. Hope that's useful. I'll speak to you again.